Have you ever felt like your dreams and truths were dismissed by others? What if you had the chance to stand up, defy the doubts, and show the world the power of your story? In today's video, we dive deep into a story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about validation and self-worth. Get ready for a powerful lesson on resilience and confidence. Comment below, where are you watching from? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. At Riverside Elementary, it's career week, and the students are excited to share what their parents do for a living. The classroom is buzzing with the energy of young minds eager to tell their classmates about their parents' professions. The children feel a mix of nervousness and pride, each one hoping that their parents' job will be impressive enough to spark interest or admiration. Character setup. In this scene, the central character, Liam, an 8-year-old boy, watches his classmates eagerly present their parents' jobs. Some speak about their parents being teachers, doctors, or business owners, professions that are familiar and seemingly simple to understand. However, there's an underlying tension among the students. Some feel anxious about whether their parents' professions are special enough. In this setting, Career Week is not just an educational activity, but a moment of vulnerability for these young children, as they gauge their place among their peers based on the perceived prestige of their parents' careers. The teacher, Ms. Thompson, facilitates the session, guiding the children as they take turns sharing. She helps manage the flow of presentations, her role serving as both a moderator and a source of reassurance for the children. She reminds the students that no job is too small or unimportant, and that every profession plays a vital role in society. As the students share their stories, the excitement and anxiety mingle, creating a charged atmosphere. Some students beam with pride, while others fidget nervously, unsure if their parents' job will measure up to the ones already shared. The classroom becomes a microcosm of the larger world, where success, value, and recognition are often measured by the job title or the kind of work someone does. In this context, Career Week serves as a rite of passage, a test of how students perceive themselves and how they feel they will be perceived by others. For Liam, the stakes are personal. His father's job, which he feels is extraordinary, is something he is eager to share with his classmates. But there's an air of skepticism in the classroom, especially when it comes to professions that feel unfamiliar or more complex than the typical roles they have seen or heard of. The anxiety in the room highlights how society often values certain professions more than others. In this young classroom, the idea of prestige or importance is already taking root in the minds of the children. For Liam, his moment of truth is approaching. He will soon reveal his father's job, which he believes is something remarkable, something that could elevate his standing in the eyes of his peers. But for now, the atmosphere is one of mixed excitement and uncertainty, as every child wonders, will their parents' job be seen as impressive? Or will it be dismissed as unremarkable? During Career Week at Riverside Elementary, each student eagerly waited their turn to present their parents' professions. Liam, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness, sat in his chair, squirming slightly as he watched his classmates share their stories. He had been looking forward to this day, eager to talk about his father, Dr. James Brooks, an aerospace engineer working on a Mars communications project at NASA. As the time for his presentation neared, Liam felt a surge of pride in his chest. He had listened to his dad's stories about space missions, satellites, and futuristic technology for as long as he could remember. In his eyes, Dr. James Brooks was a superhero. He wasn't just a parent, he was working on something that was changing the world. Liam had always felt that his father's work was extraordinary, and now, he had the chance to share it with the entire class. When it was finally his turn, Liam stood up, his heart racing with anticipation. He cleared his throat as he walked confidently to the front of the classroom. The moment his classmates and teacher, Ms. Thompson, turned their attention to him, Liam beamed and proudly declared, "My dad works at NASA. He's an aerospace engineer, and he helps build communication systems for missions to Mars." He could practically feel the pride radiating from him as he spoke. His classmates were listening, and he imagined the wide eyes and impressed faces as they processed the incredible claim. But instead of the awe he had expected, he was met with laughter. A few students snickered under their breath, and Ms. Thompson, raising an eyebrow, gave him an incredulous look. "NASA? Are you sure about that, Liam?" she asked in a voice that barely concealed her disbelief. I think you might have been watching a little too much science fiction. Liam's heart sank as the class continued to chuckle. He stood frozen for a moment, feeling the sting of embarrassment prick his skin. He had expected to be met with admiration, not ridicule. The room seemed to close in on him, and for a split second, Liam wished he could sink into the floor and disappear. Even the other students, who had been speaking with enthusiasm about their parents' jobs, seemed unsure about how to react. One or two of them exchanged looks, their faces contorted into expressions that reflected doubt. Ms. Thompson, trying to regain control of the class, forced a smile and said, "Well, NASA is a pretty big claim. I'm sure there's a simpler explanation for what your dad does, Liam." Liam stood there, feeling humiliated. What had started as a proud moment turned into something he would never forget. He had thought that his father's job would make him stand out, but now, it only made him feel small. As the laughter died down, Liam slowly returned to his seat, his head lowered. He couldn't help but feel his confidence shatter. The teacher's dismissive tone, the way his classmates laughed, it made him question everything he had believed about his father's work. Was it really possible that no one believed him? Was his father's job not as extraordinary as he thought it was? Mila, a quiet girl sitting near the back of the class, noticed his discomfort. She gave him a sympathetic look and slightly tilted her head as if to offer silent support. But the damage was done. Liam felt the crushing weight of doubt cloud his mind, overshadowing the excitement he had once felt. As Liam sat down, his hands trembling, he realized something he hadn't fully understood before. Liam's story, his father's work, was dismissed not because it wasn't true, but because it was different. The space for something extraordinary seemed limited in his classroom. He wasn't just a student sharing a parent's job, he was standing at the edge of something others couldn't grasp or even imagine. What he didn't know was that this moment, this crushing wave of embarrassment, was about to change the way he saw himself and the world around him. The laughter from his classmates still echoed in Liam's mind as he sat quietly in his seat. The words from Ms. Thompson, meant to diffuse the situation, only made him feel smaller. "Are you sure about that, Liam?" she had asked, as if questioning his entire story. She had laughed too, though in a more polite way. It didn't matter. The message had been clear. Liam's father's job, the one he had always been so proud of, was something to be doubted, something that didn't fit into their simple, everyday world. As the next few students took their turns, Liam felt his stomach twist. He tried to focus on the others presenting their parents' professions, but every word felt distant, muffled, like he was underwater. The bright faces of his classmates as they spoke about their mothers and fathers suddenly seemed far away. Liam couldn't help but wonder if they saw him differently now, if they thought he was lying, if they saw him as just another kid with an overactive imagination. Was that how they saw him now? A kid who couldn't even tell the truth about his dad's job. The weight of doubt was heavy, and he couldn't shake it off. He had been so excited to share his dad's work with everyone. Dr. James Brooks, his father, was doing important things. But in this room, the place where he had always felt safe and supported, it was hard to imagine anyone believing him anymore. Even Ms. Thompson's voice, which had been gentle when speaking to the other children, now seemed distant. She had moved on to the next student, but the discomfort lingered in the air. Liam shifted in his seat, his palms sweaty as he tried to fight back the tears that threatened to escape. He hated feeling vulnerable, especially in front of everyone, especially when he knew the truth but no one else seemed to believe him. Across the room, Mila, a girl who was often quiet but observant, caught his eye. She was sitting a few rows away, her head tilted slightly to the side, watching him. Liam quickly looked down at his hands, trying to hide the heat that was creeping up his neck. He didn't want anyone to see how embarrassed he felt, but he could feel the burning shame in his chest. After a few moments, Mila raised her hand, waiting for Ms. Thompson to call on her. The teacher, unaware of the tension in the room, acknowledged Mila, who spoke up with a calm voice, "My dad works in marketing. He helps people know about things they want to buy." It was simple, and Liam admired how confident Mila seemed. She spoke matter-of-factly, not caring if anyone found her father's job ordinary. Her confidence made Liam feel even smaller, though. He couldn't help but compare her ease with her story to his own, which had felt so crumpled and broken after the laughter. It wasn't just the laughter that hurt. It was the way Ms. Thompson had questioned him, as if his excitement was unwarranted. Liam had never seen his father's job as anything less than amazing. To him, Dr. Brooks was a pioneer. Every time his dad spoke about space exploration, about the possibility of human life on Mars, Liam felt like he was a part of something bigger, something important. He felt like he belonged to a world of adventure and discovery. But Ms. Thompson's dismissive comment had shattered that world, replacing it with doubt. At the back of his mind, Liam knew that his classmates probably didn't mean any harm. They were just kids. They didn't understand what it meant to work at NASA or what it took to make those long-distance communications happen. But none of that seemed to matter in the moment. What mattered was how they saw him now. And from the looks they had exchanged and the laughter that still echoed in his ears, Liam wasn't sure if he would ever be able to look them in the eye the same way again. Still, there was one thing that kept tugging at him. He remembered what his father had always told him: believe in your story, Liam. The truth doesn't need anyone's approval. You don't need anyone to tell you your story is worthy. But sitting in the classroom, Liam wasn't sure he could hold on to that belief. It felt like the whole class had turned against him. How could he keep holding his head high when everyone was questioning the very thing he had been proud of? As the presentations continued, Liam felt small and insignificant. The excitement he had once felt had been replaced by a heavy sadness, the kind that seemed impossible to shake off. He thought about what it would be like to tell his dad what had happened, and how embarrassed he would feel. Would Dr. Brooks understand? Would he be proud of him? Or would he be disappointed that Liam had let other people's doubts affect him so much? But even as these questions filled his mind, Mila's quiet glance still lingered in his memory. For a moment, it felt like a silent support, a reminder that maybe not everyone doubted him. And maybe, just maybe, the truth really didn't need to be validated by anyone else. Liam spent the next few days replaying the events of Career Week in his mind. The laughter, the doubt, the way his classmates had looked at him, it all kept swirling in his thoughts. He tried to focus on his schoolwork, but it felt as though he was carrying a weight that he couldn't shake off. It wasn't just the embarrassment, it was the disappointment he felt in himself. How had he let something so trivial make him question the very thing he'd been so proud of? The one thing that kept him going through it all was the idea of what Dr. Brooks, his dad, was working on. He thought about the things his father had shared with him during their conversations about space, about Mars, and about the communication system that would eventually help humanity explore the Red Planet. It was an exciting field, one that few people got to be a part of. Liam had always looked up to his dad for that very reason. His dad wasn't just an aerospace engineer, he was a part of something far greater, a story that transcended the mundane world of everyday life. Dr. Brooks had always been kind and patient with Liam. He would often take time to explain things in ways that Liam could understand, and he'd always made Liam feel like his dreams mattered. Whether it was discussing the mechanics of satellites or imagining a future where humans might live on Mars, Dr. Brooks had a way of making the impossible feel possible. But now, Liam found himself wondering how he could have ever thought anyone would believe such an incredible story. Why had he assumed that his classmates would admire his dad's work? After all, not everyone shared the same excitement about space or technology. And yet, he couldn't stop himself from thinking about how much he had wanted to share this with them. He wanted them to see what he saw in his dad's job. It wasn't just a career, it was a chance to be part of something revolutionary. One afternoon, as Liam sat at the kitchen table, lost in thought, Dr. Brooks entered the room, as if on cue. The familiar sound of his footsteps on the wooden floor was something that always brought a sense of comfort to Liam. Without looking up, Liam spoke quietly, "Dad, can we talk for a second?" Dr. Brooks, sensing that something was off, took a seat beside him. "Of course, Liam. What's on your mind?" Liam hesitated for a moment, then decided to ask the question that had been eating at him. "Do you ever feel like your work is too big for people to understand? I mean, like they won't believe it's real?" Dr. Brooks furrowed his brow slightly, then smiled gently. "What makes you ask that, son?" Liam sighed, running his fingers over the edge of his notebook. "I talked about your job at school, like you said. I told them you work at NASA and help with the Mars communication stuff. But everyone laughed. Ms. Thompson didn't believe me. She said I was making it up." Dr. Brooks leaned back, considering Liam's words. He could see the hurt in his son's eyes, and he knew that this was more than just a moment of schoolyard embarrassment. This was about something deeper. "You know, Liam," he said thoughtfully, "what I do is big. It's not something most people get to experience, and that can make it difficult for them to relate. It's not that they don't believe in what I do, it's that they can't always imagine it. It's outside the scope of their everyday world." Liam nodded slowly, absorbing his father's words. "But that doesn't make it any easier, does it?" "No," Dr. Brooks said with a soft chuckle. "It doesn't. But here's the thing, your story is your truth, Liam. You don't need anyone to validate it for you. The work I do, the work I love, is real whether anyone understands it or not. And your job, your story, will always be yours, no matter how big or small others think it is." Liam looked up at his dad, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "So you don't mind that no one believes me?" Dr. Brooks smiled. "No, son. It's not about whether they believe you, it's about whether you believe in your own story. And right now, I think you do. You know what I do, and I've told you about it many times. Don't let someone else's doubts make you forget how important and real it is." The words stuck with Liam as the days went by. His father's calm reassurance helped him process what had happened. Dr. Brooks had always been the epitome of grace under pressure, and now, more than ever, Liam understood why. His father's work wasn't something to be ashamed of, it was something to be proud of. No one's laughter could change that. Liam knew that the next time someone doubted him, he would hold his head up high and share the story again. Because, as his dad had told him, the truth didn't need validation, it stood on its own. And Liam, no matter how small or big the world seemed, was proud of his father's work, and he was proud to tell everyone about it. That was something no amount of laughter could take away. The days following career week had felt like an eternity to Liam. The laughter from his classmates, the doubt in Ms. Thompson's voice, and the way the room had shifted when he shared his dad's work, those moments replayed in his mind, like a song that wouldn't stop playing. But despite the hurt, there was something in Liam that refused to let it all go. He knew the truth about his father's job, and his dad had given him the courage to stand by that truth, no matter what anyone else thought. Now, as he sat in class, he couldn't shake the anticipation building inside him. Today was the day. Today, Dr. Brooks would walk through those doors, and finally, the truth would be undeniable. Liam didn't know how things would turn out, but one thing was certain, his dad's presence would speak volumes. Throughout the morning, Liam could barely focus on anything else. The teacher, Ms. Thompson, seemed to notice his distracted energy, but she didn't comment on it. Other students took their turns presenting their parents, but Liam barely heard their stories. His mind was fixed on one thing, the moment when Dr. Brooks would walk into that classroom and make everything right. He glanced at the clock, watching the minutes tick by slowly. His heart beat a little faster each time he looked up. What if no one believed his dad either? What if they still laughed, still dismissed him and his father's work? He swallowed hard, trying to push away the doubts that began creeping into his mind again. But the reassurance his dad had given him echoed in his thoughts, "Liam, you don't need anyone else's approval. The truth stands on its own." The room grew quieter as the morning wore on, and Liam found himself glancing out the window, willing the time to move faster. His classmates chatted among themselves as the last few presentations took place, but to Liam, everything seemed to slow down. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting for what would happen next. Then, at last, the moment came. The door to the classroom opened, and there stood Dr. Brooks, tall and confident, a slight smile playing on his lips as he surveyed the room. The students went silent almost immediately, their attention caught by the authoritative yet calm energy he exuded. For a brief second, Liam felt a rush of pride, but it quickly turned into nervousness. What if his classmates didn't recognize the importance of his dad's work? What if they still didn't believe? Dr. Brooks spoke first, his voice steady but warm. "Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. James Brooks, and I work as an aerospace engineer with NASA. I specialize in building communication systems for deep space missions, including the ones headed to Mars." There was an immediate shift in the room. Some of the students straightened in their seats, their faces lighting up with genuine curiosity. The seriousness of Dr. Brooks's presence brought an air of respect, and Liam felt his nerves settle just a little. As his dad began explaining his work, detailing the technology used to communicate with spacecraft millions of miles away, Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of awe wash over him. This was the man who had taught him about satellites, space, and the incredible work that NASA was doing. This was the man who had always made the world seem full of endless possibilities. Dr. Brooks continued, describing the specifics of his Mars communications project, how his team was working to create a more efficient way to send data back and forth from Mars to Earth. He explained the challenges, the groundbreaking innovations, and the excitement of contributing to a mission that could potentially pave the way for human life on another planet. As Dr. Brooks spoke, Liam noticed that the students were paying attention. Their previous skepticism seemed to melt away as the words NASA and Mars filled the room. Ms. Thompson stood silently by, clearly impressed by the depth of Dr. Brooks's knowledge. There was no laughter now, no questioning looks. Just interest and respect. Liam sat back in his seat, a sense of pride filling his chest. This was his dad. The one who had been dismissed as a science fiction story, just days before, was now the source of admiration. He had always known that his father's work was important, but seeing others appreciate it made all the difference. As the presentation continued, Dr. Brooks fielded questions from the students, answering them with patience and enthusiasm. The room was alive with curiosity, and Liam couldn't help but smile. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. After the presentation, the class buzzed with excitement. Some of the students crowded around Dr. Brooks, eager to ask more about space, while others exchanged excited whispers about the possibility of working for NASA one day. Even Ms. Thompson, who had been the most skeptical just days earlier, offered her congratulations and asked about the challenges Dr. Brooks faced in his work. As Dr. Brooks prepared to leave, he turned to Liam, his eyes meeting his son's with a look of pride and understanding. "You did great, Liam," he said softly. "I'm proud of you for standing by your story." Liam felt a lump form in his throat, but he nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time in days, he felt truly seen. He didn't need anyone else to validate his father's work, Dr. Brooks had already shown him that. And now, Liam knew that the truth didn't need approval from anyone. It stood on its own. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, Liam walked out of the classroom with a renewed sense of confidence. The weight he had been carrying for days had lifted, and he knew that no matter what others thought, his dad's story was one worth sharing. As the school day came to a close, Liam walked home with a lightness he hadn't felt in days. The sting of career week had faded, replaced by the warmth of validation and pride. Dr. Brooks's visit had changed everything. The laughter from his classmates seemed like a distant memory now, something that could no longer touch the truth of who his father was or what he did. Liam felt stronger, not because others had believed him, but because Dr. Brooks had given him the strength to believe in himself. Meanwhile, back at Riverside Elementary, the mood was different. Mr. Denton, the teacher who had laughed when Liam shared his father's work at NASA, sat alone in his classroom. The day's events weighed heavily on his mind. It wasn't just the way Dr. Brooks had walked into the room with confidence and shared his incredible work. It wasn't even the awe that his students had shown when they learned just how important Dr. Brooks's job was. It was how Liam had looked after the presentation, how his face had changed from one of uncertainty to one of pride. Mr. Denton had been skeptical. He'd doubted the story Liam had shared, and though he had tried to mask it with humor, he realized now how hurtful it had been. Liam had trusted him, had shared something deeply personal, and Mr. Denton had laughed. He had dismissed the young boy's excitement and wonder, and now, seeing how Liam had stood strong in the face of doubt, it made him feel small. The teacher leaned back in his chair, staring at the empty classroom. The sounds of the hallway, the chatter of students, the clink of lockers closing, faded into the background as Mr. Denton reflected on the impact of his words. He had been teaching for years, but today, he realized something vital. As an educator, his words held weight. They shaped how children viewed themselves and their potential. And his dismissive comment had, for a brief moment, crushed Liam's spirit. Mr. Denton had always prided himself on fostering a classroom where curiosity and imagination could flourish. But today, he had failed. He had let skepticism cloud his judgment, and in doing so, he had made Liam question not just his father's job, but his own worth. He remembered the look in Liam's eyes when he had sat down, deflated and humiliated, after sharing his father's story. It was the same look he had seen in students over the years when their dreams were shot down or ridiculed, and it made Mr. Denton feel ashamed. How could he have missed the excitement in Liam's voice? How could he not have seen how much it meant to him to share his father's incredible work? With a sigh, Mr. Denton stood up and paced across the room. He could hear the laughter still ringing in his ears, the same laughter that had made Liam shrink into his seat. And now, as the day came to a close, Mr. Denton realized that he had let that laughter define the moment. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a failure to see Liam for who he really was, a young boy, full of pride and hope, sharing something important to him. He thought back to his own childhood, to the times when he had felt the same doubts, when he had felt small and unimportant. And then, he thought of the students who came into his class each year, each one bringing a piece of themselves with them, hoping to be seen. Liam had hoped to be seen. And in that moment, Mr. Denton had failed him. Determined to make things right, Mr. Denton sat back down at his desk. He picked up a pen, knowing he needed to do something to fix the damage. He thought about the letter he would write to Liam, a letter that acknowledged the mistake he had made, a letter that would let Liam know he was valued and that his story was important. It wasn't just about apologizing, it was about showing that he understood the impact of his actions and was willing to change. The letter needed to be heartfelt, honest, and meaningful. Mr. Denton knew that Liam might never fully forget the way he had been treated, but at least he could give him something that showed he was respected and appreciated. As he began to write, the words flowed easily. "Dear Liam, I wanted to take a moment to apologize for the way I reacted during your Career Week presentation. In hindsight, I realize that my words were hurtful, and I deeply regret making you feel small. The work your father does is nothing short of extraordinary, and I should have recognized that from the start. I've learned today that sometimes, we dismiss things that seem far beyond our understanding, and in doing so, we dismiss the passion and pride that others hold dear. I'm sorry I didn't see that in you. Your dad's work is important, and so is your story. I hope that you will continue to share your dreams with the world, and that you will never feel the need to shrink in front of anyone. You have a voice, and I believe in what you can accomplish. Please accept my apologies, and know that I respect and admire you. Sincerely, Mr. Denton." As he finished the letter, Mr. Denton felt a sense of relief. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He knew that this one letter wouldn't undo the harm done in the classroom, but it was a step toward healing. And for Liam, it might be a sign that his teacher understood the importance of listening, of truly hearing the stories of his students, no matter how big or small they seemed. Mr. Denton folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. He would hand it to Liam the next time they met. He wasn't sure what would happen after that, but he hoped that in some way, this simple act of acknowledgement would help Liam see that he was valued, no matter what anyone else might think. The days following Dr. Brooks's visit were filled with a new energy for Liam. The weight of the doubt and the laughter from his classmates seemed to disappear, replaced by the warmth of pride. Liam walked through the halls of Riverside Elementary with a renewed sense of confidence, his head held high, not because of what others thought of his father's work, but because of how he had come to see himself. The students who had once laughed at his story now treated him with a newfound respect. It wasn't just about the fact that Dr. Brooks had walked into the classroom and explained his groundbreaking work, it was about how Liam had stood by his truth despite the skepticism. Ms. Thompson, who had once questioned the authenticity of Liam's claim, had changed as well. She now greeted him with a warm smile, her demeanor softer, as if she had realized just how valuable Liam's perspective was. But it wasn't just the adults who had changed. The other students in the class had begun to look at Liam differently, too. The same classmates who had exchanged doubtful glances now approached him with curiosity. They asked him more questions about space, about his father's work, and about what it was like to be part of something so important. It was a quiet shift, one that happened slowly but steadily, as if they were beginning to see Liam for who he really was, a young boy with a passion for something far bigger than they could have imagined. One afternoon, during recess, Liam found himself sitting with Mila, who had been one of the few who had quietly supported him during career week. She hadn't laughed at him or doubted his story. Instead, she had offered him a kind, knowing look, a gesture that had meant more to him than she would ever know. "Hey, Liam," Mila said softly as they sat side by side on the swings. "I just wanted to say I think it's really cool what your dad does. I didn't know anything about that stuff before. It's amazing." Liam smiled at her, feeling a weight lift from his chest. "Thanks, Mila. I don't think a lot of people understand how cool it is. But my dad's always telling me that sometimes people just need time to get it." Mila nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, I guess so. But you're lucky to have a dad who does something that awesome. I'm sure not a lot of kids get to have that." The word stung in a way Liam hadn't expected. It wasn't out of jealousy, it was just the simple truth. Mila was right. Not everyone had a parent who was doing something so monumental. Not everyone got to go home and hear stories about Mars and space exploration. But Liam had that, and he realized, in that moment, how fortunate he truly was. Later that day, Miss Thompson called him to her desk. Liam had been dreading the moment when he would have to face her after the events of career week. He had been unsure of how she would treat him, and the weight of her earlier comments still lingered in his mind. But as he approached, Miss Thompson gave him a warm, sincere smile. "Liam," she said gently, "I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciated what your dad shared with the class. I should have believed you from the start. His work is incredible, and I'm so glad you had the courage to share it. I was wrong to question you, and I'm sorry for that." For a moment, Liam stood frozen, unsure how to respond. It wasn't every day that an adult admitted they had made a mistake. He had expected her to offer some vague apology or brush it off, but her words were genuine, and he felt the sincerity in them. "It's okay, Miss Thompson," he said quietly. "I guess I just wanted everyone to see how cool my dad is. But I guess it's not about what other people think, right?" Miss Thompson nodded. "Exactly, Liam. And you should be proud of who your dad is and the work he's doing. I've learned a lot from this, too. Sometimes it's easy to doubt things we don't fully understand. But that doesn't mean they're any less important." The conversation was brief, but for Liam, it meant the world. It wasn't just an apology, it was an acknowledgement of his worth, an acknowledgement that his story mattered. And it reminded him that Dr. Brooks had been right all along. Liam didn't need anyone's approval to validate his story. It was enough for him to believe in himself. As the school year continued, Liam carried that lesson with him. He found that his confidence grew, not from what others thought of him, but from the pride he had in his own story and the work his father was doing. He didn't need to impress anyone, he just needed to be true to himself. In the end, Liam learned that growth didn't always come from external validation. Sometimes, it came from standing firm in the face of doubt, from holding on to your truth, and from knowing that your story, no matter how big or small, was worth telling. After Dr. Brooks's visit to Riverside Elementary, things began to change for Liam. The school day that had once been a place of anxiety and uncertainty now felt like a stage where he could stand tall. He walked through the hallways with a new sense of pride, no longer weighed down by the doubts that had clouded his thoughts. His classmates, who had once laughed at his story, now treated him with a newfound respect. The atmosphere in the classroom had shifted from one of skepticism to one of curiosity and admiration. The change was subtle at first, but it was there. When Liam spoke in class, he was no longer met with the laughter or disbelief that had once stung. His classmates began to ask more thoughtful questions, expressing genuine interest in his father's work at NASA. Even the more skeptical students, the ones who had doubted him the most, started to see the importance of what Dr. Brooks was doing. Liam had known all along that his dad's job was special, but it felt good to have others start to recognize that too. Ms. Thompson, who had once questioned Liam's story, now treated him with a new level of respect. She never again doubted the validity of his words. Instead, she made a conscious effort to encourage him to share more about his father's work, to be proud of his knowledge and experiences. Liam appreciated her shift in attitude. Her apology had meant a lot to him, and it reinforced the lesson his father had taught him: the truth didn't need validation. It stood on its own. For Liam, the experience had been transformative. He had started the week feeling uncertain, even embarrassed, but by the end, he had gained something more valuable than anyone's approval: he had gained confidence in his own story. He no longer cared whether people believed him or not, he knew the truth, and that was enough. He thought about how his dad had always told him to believe in his story, to hold on to the things that mattered most to him, no matter what anyone else thought. That lesson had stayed with him, and now, in his own quiet way, Liam was becoming someone who could stand firm in his own identity and beliefs. He knew that even if the world doubted him, his story was worth telling. At lunch one day, Mila sat next to him, smiling. "You know, Liam, I think it's really cool what your dad does. I didn't really understand it before, but now I do. It's amazing." Liam smiled back, feeling a warm sense of pride fill him. "Thanks, Mila. It's still kind of hard for people to understand. But I'm glad you get it." Over the next few weeks, the shift in Liam's confidence became more noticeable. He began participating more in class, answering questions with newfound assurance. He shared his thoughts without hesitation, whether the subject was space, his dad's work, or something else entirely. And while Liam knew that the journey wasn't over, he felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the lessons he had learned during Career Week would stay with him forever. After Liam's remarkable transformation, it wasn't just the students who had changed. Mr. Denton had been forced to reflect deeply on his own actions. The morning after Dr. Brooks's visit, he sat in his office, reading over the notes he had made during the presentation. He thought about how quickly he had dismissed Liam when he first shared his father's story. How had he let skepticism cloud his judgment so easily? And why had he laughed at something so important to Liam? Mr. Denton wasn't proud of his behavior. He had prided himself on being an educator who encouraged curiosity, fostered imagination, and respected his students' dreams. Yet, when faced with something he didn't fully understand, he had made a mistake. He hadn't trusted his students' words. He hadn't taken the time to truly listen, and now, he regretted it. The shift in Liam had not only taught the students a valuable lesson, but it had taught Mr. Denton as well. He realized that part of his role as a teacher was to nurture his students' confidence, to help them believe in their own abilities, no matter how extraordinary or out of the box their ideas might seem. Liam had stood up and spoken his truth, and Mr. Denton had allowed doubt to drown out that truth. Sitting at his desk, Mr. Denton made a decision. He would not let this moment pass without making amends. He would write Liam a letter to apologize for doubting him, for dismissing his story, and for not offering the support that Liam deserved. Mr. Denton had spent years teaching children, but this was a lesson that would stay with him forever: the importance of validating the stories and voices of his students. Every child, no matter how big or small their dreams seemed, deserved to be heard. He pulled out a sheet of paper and began to write, "Dear Liam, I want to apologize. I should have listened more closely, believed you from the start, and shown you the respect you deserve. The work your dad does is amazing, and I regret not understanding that sooner. You were right to be proud of your father's work, and I should have celebrated that with you. I'm sorry for doubting you. What I've learned from you is a lesson that I will carry with me for the rest of my career, that every child's story matters, and that their voices should be heard. Thank you for teaching me that. I hope you'll continue to share your story and know that I, for one, will always believe in you. Sincerely, Mr. Denton." As Mr. Denton sealed the letter, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had made a mistake, but he had the opportunity to make it right. And he hoped that, in some small way, Liam would understand just how much he had learned from this experience. The next day, Mr. Denton handed the letter to Liam, who looked at him curiously. As Liam read the words, a small smile spread across his face. For the first time in a long while, Mr. Denton saw a new kind of respect in his student's eyes, not just for his father's work, but for himself. And in that moment, Mr. Denton realized that the most important part of being a teacher wasn't just about imparting knowledge, it was about learning from his students, too. The story of Liam and Dr. Brooks imparts a powerful lesson on the importance of believing in one's truth, regardless of the skepticism or doubt that others may cast upon it. It serves as a reminder that the stories we carry, no matter how extraordinary or unfamiliar they may seem to others, are worth sharing. In life, we often encounter moments where we feel the need to validate ourselves in the eyes of others, but true growth comes from standing firm in what we know to be true. The world will always be full of those who question, dismiss, or misunderstand, but our self-worth doesn't depend on their approval. Just like Liam found strength in his father's work, we too can draw strength from our unique journeys and the things that make us proud. Embrace your narrative, trust in your path, and remember that your voice deserves to be heard. It is not about fitting into others' expectations, but about remaining authentic to who you are. Life often calls for resilience, and in standing firm in our truths, we not only honor ourselves but also inspire others to do the same. If you found this message meaningful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay connected. Your support truly helps me continue to share stories that matter. Thank you.